Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, let's begin with the presidential race and a fast-moving campaign for Vice President Kamala Harris. Less than 2 days after President Biden withdrew from the campaign, the vice president has crossed the magic number of 1,976 pledged delegates to clinch the Democratic nomination. That's according to an unofficial tally from the Associated Press. Harris told staffers at her new campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware, that she intends to earn and win the nomination.
Over the next 106 days, we are going to take our case to the American people, and we are going to win.
Vice President Harris got President Biden's backing in a call to the HQ.
The name has changed at the top of the ticket, but the mission hasn't changed at all. And by the way, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be out there in the campaign with her, with Kamala. I'm going to be working like hell, both as a sitting president, getting legislation passed, as well as in campaigning.
And this morning, the Harris campaign has announced it raised more than $100 million between Sunday afternoon and last night from more than 1.1 million donors, 62% of whom were first-timers. Vice President Harris has her first full-fledged rally as a presidential candidate later today in Milwaukee, where Republicans just held their convention last week.
And soon, Nathan, Harris will need to recommend a running mate to delegates ahead of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. And Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, lays out her options.
I'm old-fashioned. I think that you want to have a balanced ticket. So you pick somebody who's not like you, but can appeal to other segments of the party and the population. And this is all about electoral votes. You know, you can talk about anything you want to, but you win when you get 270 electoral votes. So you pick somebody who can win electoral votes. To me, that means Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, that's 19 electoral votes, or Governor Cooper of North Carolina, that's 16 electoral votes, or Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, that's 11 electoral votes, plus he's already known because of his astronaut career.
Larry Sabato made the comments on Bloomberg's Balance of Power. Catch the program weekdays from noon to 2 and again at 5 p.m. on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
Well, meanwhile, Karen, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance used his first solo campaign rally to slam both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Now, history will remember Joe Biden as not just a quitter, which he is, but one of the worst presidents of the United States of America. But my friends, Kamala Harris is a million times worse, and everybody knows it.
Speaking in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio, J.D. Vance also said the border crisis is a Kamala Harris crisis.
Well, turning to the markets now, Nathan, futures are lower a day after all three major indexes started the week with gains. The Dow ended the day above 40,400. And Ed Yardeni, president at Yardeni Research, sees the blue chip index going much higher by the end of the decade.
It's not a stretch to believe that over the remaining decade we could get to 60,000. And I've got the S&P 500 going to 8,000. So it's a bull market. Just take a look at a long-term chart of the S&P 500, and what you see is that bear markets occur every now and then, but they don't last very long, and that the fundamental trend of the market is upwards along with the economy.
Ed Yardeni of Yardeni Research says earnings, not politics, will drive the markets going forward.
And speaking of earnings, Karen, we get results from two of the so-called Magnificent Seven today, one of which is Tesla. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Tom Busby.
Despite some massive staff reductions and a better-than-forecast number of deliveries in the second quarter, operating margins at Tesla, which could shrink for a sixth quarter in a row, will be a major focus for investors. Also, signs of a rebound in China, which may point to a better second half of the year. The real drama will come on the earnings call, where Tesla is expected to give an update on the progress of its long-delayed robotaxi and any plans for a more affordable next-generation vehicle. For Q2, consensus calls for adjusted earnings per share of 60 cents, revenues of $24.63 billion. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Tom, thanks. So we'll also hear from Google parent Alphabet after the closing bell, and that company is making news on another front. Alphabet's $23 billion offer for cybersecurity startup Wiz has been rejected. Instead, Wiz is sticking with a plan for an initial public offering. The rejection is a blow to Alphabet. It's trying to catch up with Microsoft and Amazon in the competitive cloud services market.
And Karen, we continue to watch the fallout from last week's global IT meltdown. Now, the CEO of CrowdStrike is being called to testify before a House committee. Let's get the latest from Bloomberg's John Tucker. John.
Nate, Congress wants answers, and things could get heated for CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz. In a letter to Kurtz, the leaders of the House Committee on Homeland Security say, in less than one day, we've seen major impacts to key functions of the global economy, and Americans deserve to know in detail how this incident happened and the mitigation steps CrowdStrike is taking. Well, it doesn't stop there. Other congressional committees have asked company officials for briefings. Last week's outage was blamed on a defect in a software update and impacted CrowdStrike customers using Microsoft Windows. Congress does have the power to compel testimony by issuing subpoenas, but usually first they ask potential witnesses to appear voluntarily. CrowdStrike shares fell over 13% yesterday after Friday's 11% drop. John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thanks. And that technology outage is still having a major impact on Delta. The airline says it expects to cancel more flights this week. Delta has already grounded almost 4,700 flights since Friday's meltdown. More than half of Delta's worldwide IT relies on Microsoft Windows operating system, which was affected by the CrowdStrike software error. And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Secret Service's director says the roof where a shooter opened fire at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally was identified as a potential vulnerability days before the event. Director Kimberly Cheadle made the comments as she was grilled by lawmakers over the July 13th assassination attempt against Trump. Cheadle told lawmakers during a congressional hearing, "We failed.
We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again."
Cheadle was slammed by both sides of the aisle. Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland.
The director has lost the confidence of Congress at a very urgent and tender moment in the history of the country, and we need to very quickly move beyond this.
Yesterday, Republican lawmakers visited the site in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the gunman tried to assassinate the former president. House Homeland Security Vice Chair Michael Guest.
I join many other members of Congress in calling for the resignation of Director Cheadle. She must resign immediately for the good of the country and for the good of the department that she serves, the Secret Service.
Meanwhile, some members of Congress are filing impeachment charges against Cheadle. An FAA investigation is ongoing after a small plane crashed in Long Island MacArthur Airport, killing 2 men, a pilot and a passenger. The single-engine Beechcraft crashed near the end of the runway at the airport last evening in Islip. Suffolk County Police say, according to a witness, the plane took off and then, for some unknown reason, attempted to return to the airport when it crashed. The families of American hostages held by Hamas met with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at the White House ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress tomorrow. The Israeli leader is in Washington. The families demanded that Netanyahu accept a peace deal to free the hostages. Rachel Goldberg-Polin is the mother of American hostage Hirsch Goldberg-Polin.
Announcing that he is ready to be doing this deal that has taken many, many, many months, many hours, too much pain.
Meanwhile, Netanyahu will meet with President Biden later this week. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Mets and Yankees played a 2-game Subway Series a month ago at Citi Field. Mets won them both 9-7, 12-2. Now it's 2 games in the Bronx. Tonight and tomorrow, Yanks just got their 60th win. They hit 5 home runs, none from Aaron Judge. DJ LeMahieu batting just 181. Hit his first of the season. Anthony Volpe's first homer since mid-May. Austin Wells went yard early. Juan Soto hit one out 7th inning. Came up again in the 8th.
Here's Soto, and he swings and drives it deep into right field, and it is gone! A home run onto the porch. A laser shot off the bat of Juan Soto. We continue to watch greatness from the sensational Juan. A 3-run jack into the porch and right, and the Yankees are ahead 9-1.
On WCBS, that was the final over Tampa Bay. Carlos Rodon ending a personal 5-game losing streak, went 7 innings, allowed only 2 hits, struck out 10. David Peterson now 5-0 for the Mets. 6-4 win at Miami. Jeff McNeil, a 2-run homer. Francisco Lindor homered twice. So the Mets and Yankees both come out of the All-Star break, splitting the 4-game series. The Red Sox, since the break, 0-4, lost a wild one at Colorado, 9-8 in 12 innings. The day began for LeBron James with news he will carry the flag at Friday's Olympic opening ceremonies in Paris, chosen in a vote of the near 600 U.S. athletes. LeBron called it an incredible honor. He then scored the last 11 U.S. points as they won their final tune-up, 92-88 over Germany. Their first Olympic game is Sunday against Serbia. NFL training camps opening up in Green Bay. It's without starting quarterback Jordan Love, due to make $10.5 million this season. That's way below what starting QBs make. Love is holding out until he gets a new contract. Start of the U.S. Junior Amateur Golf outside of Detroit. Tiger Woods' his 15-year-old son Charlie struggled with an 82. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on SiriusXM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. Well, the pieces are quickly falling into place for Vice President Kamala Harris and her sudden presidential campaign. Just a day after President Biden ended his run, Harris has picked up more than enough delegates to clinch the Democratic nomination, and she is about to head out for her first rally as the presumptive nominee. Joining us for more is Bloomberg News senior editor Bill Ferries. Wow, Bill, politics can really turn on a dime, at least now. We just got word from the Harris campaign that it's raised more than $100 million since Sunday afternoon. Can we talk about momentum in this race now?
Yeah, Nathan, thanks for having me. I mean, it's clear, if anything, there was a lot of money sitting on the sidelines in the past several weeks after Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance, and then even more recently, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Clearly, there were a lot of doubts on the Democratic side, and this shift to Kamala Harris has really pumped up the enthusiasm and the willingness of donors, both small and large, to open up their pocketbooks here. $100 million. I mean, it's dwarfing what the Biden campaign had raised in the last month that they had the report, and we're just talking about basically 48 hours here. So she is definitely having kind of a best case scenario when you look at the first 2 days. She's going to try to keep building on that with her speech later today in Milwaukee, and in the base, try to keep going in the 100 days or so we have before this election. It's really going to be, everything's going to seem like it's on fast forward for us.
Does Harris still face doubts, though, from some wings of her Democratic Party? We did hear from Senator Manchin saying he'd still like an open nominating process. He'd like to have the voices of more centrist wing of the Democratic Party heard as well. And we still haven't gotten a formal formal endorsement from former President Barack Obama, among others.
Yeah, I think Joe Manchin, I think he's switched to being an independent. I don't know if he's re-registered as a Democrat at this point. I think there probably are some pockets out there. The overwhelming number of delegates or states that have been polled so far seem to be going into the Harris camp. I suspect when you talk about support from different wings of the party or the areas the parts that may have some reticence to this quick nomination, I think you're going to see some of that play out perhaps in the vice presidential selection process. I think you'll have the different sides of the Democratic Party weighing in on who they think would be the best pick, but there's a pretty good bench there. I think Harris has to choose from, and she does have some time to make that decision. So a lot of these voices are going to be heard, or at least get a chance to make their case in the coming weeks.
It was interesting as well to hear from Vice President Harris at her new campaign headquarters yesterday, talking about how she plans to prosecute the case against former President Trump as she gets ready for a head-to-head matchup.
Yeah, she said, she was Attorney General in California. She said that she took on perpetrators of all kinds and then said, so hear me when I say I know Donald Trump's type. I think those of us who helped cover the 2020 election remember her having some very strong moments in the debates. Her campaign actually struggled, and I think she left before the primaries. But she had a strong performance against Joe Biden. In fact, in one of those early debates, I think there's a lot of interest in seeing how she and Donald Trump would match up. Originally they were supposed to be a debate in the first half of September. It remains to be seen whether that is still on the schedule. But I think the Harris camp will be looking forward to that.
And in just 30 seconds, Bill, we also heard from J.D. Vance saying Democrats are a threat to democracy now that they've essentially pushed President Biden out. How potent is that argument?
Yeah, it's something I think that will have some traction on the Republican side, but I think it's going to have traction with people who are probably already on the Trump-Vance train. I don't know that you're going to win over a lot of voters with that. When you go into the polling booth on primary day, you're actually voting for the delegates, not the candidate. So I think, those delegates are the ones who will ultimately make the choice at the convention.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.